Welcome back. It's time for Major Stories. Good evening. I am Joel Crosskill. It was not business as usual in Ocheria, St. Anne today, as a cruise ship arriving from Miami was ordered to remain at sea. Port health officials who inspected the cruise ship discovered a crew member in isolation due to a cough, fever and associated muscle pain. Khadija Thomas tells us more in this report.
The MSC Meraviglia cruise ship remains at sea after arriving at approximately 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday. The cruise line, which carries over 4,500 passengers and over 1,600 crew members, was denied access to the port of call in St. Anne after inspection by health officials. They discovered that a crew member was in isolation with coronavirus symptoms. The mayor of St. Anne, who is also president of the National Cruise Council, revealed that two on board had elevated temperatures.
They decided that they wanted to know if they could come and land the ship in Jamaica in waters, in particular Ocheria. So the health department, who have been trained on the entire coronavirus, and at the same time they've been trained on all the various activities associated with that in a preemptive move, went on board and decided to make a quarantine situation exist, which we found out was existing. He
believes the discovery has affected those who do business in the area, but safety is of top priority.
If we were to get the coronavirus anywhere along this, the economic spin-off of that would be catastrophic. And we recognize that. So, yes, we may have lost some economic benefit, some economics today in terms of loss of revenues and so on. It's better to just send back the ship and hope that the next ship that comes won't have any sort of issues like this. And a recurrence of this could be imminent.
Many, although dependent on cruise ships to make a living, are relieved that health officials acted when they did.
One back, man. Tomorrow's a different day. No one that at Jamaica. We'll have our own black brothers. Tomorrow's a different day. Just worry.
Internationally, there are more than 80,000 cases and 2,700 deaths as the virus continues to spread. The World Health Organization appears to be struggling to find a means of controlling the pandemic. The Center for Disease Control has warned Americans to prepare for an outbreak, saying this may be bad. And global stock markets have plunged for a second day as investors now appear panicked about the coronavirus threat. Khadija Thomas, CBM Live.
Jamaicans can expect the economy to keep moving at a snail's pace. This after the Planning Institute of Jamaica reports growth of 0.1% for October to December 2019. It's citing the closure of the Gisco Allpart plant in St. Elizabeth as the main reason. So, with one of the country's main growth drivers crippled and the second tourism threatened by the deadly coronavirus outbreak, can the economy ride out the storm? Jamaica Maitland reports.
0.1%. The Planning Institute of Jamaica released the figures after the revision of the October to December period. Director of the PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry, said the figures represent the 20th consecutive quarter of growth.
Today, we are reporting that real GDP for the October to December 2019 quarter is estimated to have grown by 0.1%. relative to the corresponding quarter of 2018. This represents 20 consecutive quarters of growth in the economy.
Growth has fallen short of the target set by the Economic Growth Council, which promised 5% in 4 years back in 2016. Jamaica's economy grew by 1.5% that year, then dropped to 0.7% in 2017. It then rose to 1.6% in 2018, and now the PIOJ estimates 0.9% growth for 2019. 4 years later, the EGC said the economy is on the cusp of takeoff. The Economic Programs Oversight Committee, EPOC, said the country has met all quantitative targets despite the watchful eye of the International Monetary Fund, IMF. So why then does the country continue to have a less than desirable growth despite exceeding these targets?
Further growth was stymied by 1. The winding down of major construction projects and the slow rollout of new strategic investment projects, and 2, planned downtime due to aged equipment in several industries.
PIOJ said the goods-producing industry reduced by almost 4% for the period, but the services industry increased by 1.5%. But was this enough to drive growth? The Jamaican economy is heavily dependent on services, which accounts for more than 70% of GDP. The country gets most of its foreign exchange from tourism, remittances, and bauxite and alumina. The sluggish economic growth will become more familiar.
Real value added for the mining and quarrying industry fell by an estimated 38.7%, reflecting a downturn in the production of alumina and crude bauxite. Alumina production fell by 44.9%, driven by a cessation of production at the Alpart refinery, as well as lower production levels at the other 2 refineries that were operational.
Jamila Maitland for CVM Live.
The government says it's drafting legislation to allow social enterprises that list on the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange to offer shares to the public and for those shares to be traded on the secondary market. The announcement was made during the JSSE's listing ceremony. DEFCAN became the first social enterprise to list on the JSSE. Here again is my colleague Jamila Maitland.
Minister Floyd Green said the government is exploring ways to allow social enterprises to offer shares to the public which can be traded on the secondary market. He said the government understands that some social enterprises won't be able to raise capital to fund their projects. However, through the issuing of shares, companies have access to equity capital.
The listing today is made possible because of donations by well-thinking Jamaicans. However, we envision a longer-term goal. And I say long-term, but we would love to achieve it in the medium term.
DEFCAN is a social enterprise that trains deaf workers in coffee making and baking. The company, which engages, equips, and empowers deaf youth, made history when it listed on the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange. Founder and CEO of DEFCAN, Blake Widmer, says the listing is a huge win for the deaf community, which will help to increase their chances of employment and break stereotypical barriers.
So we're excited to see our small pilot farm of 1.5 acres triple in size. We're going to 5 acres. We'll be able to procure the equipment that's necessary for processing the coffee, and we'll continue to grow not only through the employment in agriculture, but then having our own supply of beans that can be roasted by deaf young people, that can be brewed by deaf young people, and can be served to happy customers.
Meanwhile, chairman of the NCB Foundation, Thalia Lynn, says DEFCAN has shown great resilience and has set the tone for companies to list on the JSSE. DEFCAN received a whopping $7.5 million from the foundation for the listing.
The fact that we can do something to help them have a livelihood so they feel, needed, feel useful as part of society. That's part of what NCB Foundation is all about.
Jamila Maitland for CVM Live.
A dismal waste of public funds, according to the chairman of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, PAC, Mark Golding, who along with other members are expressing outrage with the local government ministry's action in spending over $130 million to the landlord of the property before they have fully occupied the building. They also criticized the millions that the ministry spent to renovate the building before they moved in over a year later. More in this report with Christine Forbes.
Details of the lease agreement between the government and owners of the property currently occupied by the Ministry of Local Government were the center of discussions at the Public Accounts Committee. The 5-year lease to facilitate the relocation of the local government ministry began in December 2016. However, the building was not fully occupied by the ministry until the end of September 2018.
So it has now paid 132 plus 80 million, 210 million approximately, before it starts occupying the building, and then it only has approximately 3 years left to run in occupancy, a little over 3 years. I mean, Mr. Chairman, this is extraordinary. I have never seen such incompetence.
In response, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, Marsha Henry Martin, says measures were put in place to speed up the renovation process.
We do concur that some things could have been done better. That is the first call. Yes, we were mindful that time was running and that we needed to occupy in the shortest possible time.
Yes, I
and
hear
just
you,
to
but
mention that we in fact commenced occupation in July, wherein the first set of persons to have been relocated would have been the property taxes unit as well as the technical services unit.
Chairman of the committee, Mark Goldin, highlighting the fact that the building lease expires in less than 2 years, says it's a dismal waste of public funds.
This was a very sweet deal for the landlord, where you're fixing the roof, putting in ACs, redoing the electricals and so on, while you're paying full commercial rates for the premises and you're not even using the building for over a year and a half. I must say, it really, I think, is indicative of